Hello, Ben. Welcome. Glad to have you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very pleased to be here.
Thank you for joining. So, Ben, you are a partner with Mishcon Reya based in London, UK. You deal mainly with international dispute resolution, but you also sit as an arbitrator and as a mediator, I must mention. I'm imagining you're having your hands pretty busy right now with everything going on. We're calling this series Negotiation in Action because there certainly is a lot to be negotiated at the moment. What does
Yeah.
the field look like on your end? What are some of the negotiations that are currently ringing on your door?
Yes. Well, I mean, the world has been turned upside down. The world of work, at least, and in many other ways, of course. And in the particular things that I'm seeing is well, there's two main categories. Firstly, the work that we've been doing for a long time prior to this crisis has to continue in some way, and that is forcing us to adapt in the way we're working, in the way we are approaching things. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, the priorities of clients are changing. So we are getting lots of inquiries, in particular, about how to renegotiate contracts in this current environment. Contracts which were fine in a normal environment, but in today's world have become very onerous. I mean, to give you an example, we're doing one at the moment which involves an airline, and of course, airlines are all grounded at the moment. And as a result, that contract is suddenly too burdensome to continue. So my client is having discussions with the other side, trying to find a way forward. And that second group of discussions has taken priority over the first group. So to some extent, the first group, the longer term stuff, is being pushed into the background. I'm working for another client, a construction client, for example. They have various historic claims, which I've been working on, but they've told me just pause the work on those. We want to talk about force majeure there. I mean, at that particular construction site, they cannot send their people to it. It's in Eastern Europe, and they cannot send, because of the restrictions imposed by the government, they just can't send the people to it. So they've had to call FM, and then that has all sorts of other implications for a major construction project, which, as you know, is very complex and has lots of different interrelated parts. So it's those two categories of things we're mostly dealing with at the moment.
So certainly there's a set of very immediate issues that need to be resolved first. What would you say are the particularly challenging factors about these immediate issues that need to be negotiated or renegotiated now? What makes it so difficult?
Well, I mean, I think there are two things. One is the practicalities of it all when we're not face to face in rooms together, when we can't travel to see people and sit down with them, and we have to compensate by having video calls like this one, and lots of emails as well. And so we're having to learn the technology very quickly and rely on the technology in a big way, and that comes with various challenges. The other issue is, well, just the general business environment, that it has changed people's commercial priorities in a big way. I mean, for some companies, cash at the moment is vital. I mean, they need the cash, and that means either getting more cash in or stopping cash going out. And that's a whole different commercial world from what it was 6 months ago, 12 months ago.
It's more about survival now than increasing profits.
Yes, for many companies it is, yes. And sorry, I should say a third thing. We are encountering issues that we haven't seen before. I mean, I've done a lot of work about force majeure, but in the past, but I've never done a force majeure about a pandemic.
Mm.
And even more unusual, under English law, there's this distinction between force majeure, which is found in clauses in a contract, and then you've got frustration, which operates outside the contract, impacts on the contract from the outside. That is being relied on more and more. Now, frustration is something that you would read about in the textbooks. You would occasionally read a case about, but in most people's day-to-day lives, you never see it.
It reminds
and
you
all of a sudden, all of a sudden we're being asked about it. And there are no cases, there's no case law in English law from the past about pandemics. All the cases are about, I don't know, storms or buildings burning down or whatever. I mean, this is a unique situation as far as the application of English law. And having to work your way through that is very difficult. I mean, a pandemic like this, you don't know how it's going to affect people. I mean, you see the news day to day, but you don't know how it's going to affect people in a week's time, a month's time, a year's time. You don't know what restrictions are going to remain in place in the future. You don't know what's going to happen when these restrictions are removed. I mean, our government's simply going to remove all the restrictions overnight, or are they going to phase them out over time? I mean, my best guess is that they will phase them out. But how does that impact on your contract, on your project? Yeah. I mean, the boundaries or the goalposts have been moved many times on this, and we're all grappling with this new reality.
Yeah, not only one new challenge, but actually a multi-layered field of complexity that now plays into negotiation.
Yeah.
In the
complexity is the word. I mean, again, you think of force majeure. I've done a lot of work on force majeure involving the transport of goods, and it's usually just one cargo which is affected, and that has a knock-on effect. So there is a bit of complexity here. But in the current time, it's a whole different level of complexity. You're having to deal with so many different things which are affected, because, I mean, of course, this is it affects everyone globally. It's not just one cargo being affected, it's all cargoes being affected. It's all supply lines, it's all the people involved in these supply lines. It's all people running the contracts, all people running the projects. And that level of, plus, as I say, there's this uncertainty about the future. That level of complexity is very, very difficult to deal with.
So now, obviously, the difficult question that I have to ask you, with all that complexity, with all that uncertainty, how do you deal with it? What's your best advice you can give to people who are currently finding themselves reading contracts with all these challenges?
Yeah, well, it's take each day as it comes. I mean, it's true that the fundamentals of negotiation remain true, that it is very important to properly prepare, to analyze your position, to think very carefully about the position you're in and what you want to get out of it. That's the first thing. And the second thing is to communicate. I mean, having a direct communication with someone very often throws up different ways of thinking, or removes obstacles, or makes you realize an agreement is much easier than you thought. I mean, sometimes communications do go badly, and sometimes you do end up in an argument, but very often it removes lots of arguments, and it removes lots of problems. So those fundamentals are vital, that you prepare and that you communicate. But after that, it's very difficult to give any advice, because this is all new. I mean, I think we're also, at the moment, when we've all recently gone into lockdown, I think there's a lot of sympathy around and people are feeling we're in it together and we have to help each other out. I mean, some people are saying, no, don't do these things because things aren't as bad as you make out. You shouldn't terminate this contract. You shouldn't take this step. We just have to continue as normal. But a lot of people are saying, we entirely agree. We're sympathetic. We're in the same boat. We are willing to postpone things. We're willing to adapt things. But that's what they're saying at the moment. But depending on how this goes on for, in a month's time, in 2 months' time, people's attitudes may change because the squeeze on cash may get worse and worse. People may find themselves in financial difficulties and having to go back to the people they negotiated with and say, can we renegotiate this again? Can we talk about it again? And the people they're negotiating with themselves may have even greater problems. On top of that, governments are changing the rules around us. I was reading this morning that Singapore is going to introduce a law which imposes a solution from the outside. I mean, for example, suspending the payment obligations for a fixed period of time. And that's will have a lot of impact, basically all contracts under Singapore law, as far as I understand it. And that's going to change the game again when that comes in, which will be, looks like it'll be a few weeks' time. So government action is going to change the way people communicate, the way people negotiate as this crisis continues. And of course, government actions are inconsistent. I mean, different governments are acting at different times. They're taking different steps. They are approaching things differently. Yes. Yes. And of course, the other thing, perhaps the most obvious thing, is that people themselves are getting sick. I mean, fortunately, touch wood, no one that I'm dealing with directly has fallen sick yet. But you may well be negotiating with someone who, during the negotiation, comes down with this virus and has to go off sick. That will also disrupt things.
Wow. So one way or the other, we're going to look at a lot of negotiations and potentially renegotiations for the next couple of weeks. So what I'm hearing you say is really focus on the fundamentals, focus yourself back to what was always important for every negotiation you did before, because now it's only just become more important as you go into these continued renegotiations. Prepare, analyze, and communicate even better than you ever have. Thank you so much, Ben. That was very helpful, very interesting. Thank you for taking the time joining us. I wish you all the best. Stay safe. Take good care.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.